March 2nd. It's about 7:17, and we got showcasing Brainerd, and we have Brainerd Public Library personnel, Jolene Bradley, and maybe Mary, you want to lead off and just kind of do the introduction?
Well, I'll try. Jolene Bradley is our branch librarian. Brainerd is a part of the Kichigami regional system, and each of the branches has their own branch librarian, and for Brainerd it's Jolene Bradley. She's been here, 3-4 years? 5 years. And she's done very innovative work for our library, and I wanted her to tell you about it.
There you go, Jolene.
Well, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it. I have some handouts, which will be together. So once again, we've had another really great year in 2014 for the Brainerd Public Library. We've had some phenomenal pieces, and we definitely appreciate having Mary on the board, so thanks for sharing her with us. But one of the great breakdowns that we had when we were going through our statistic is to find out just how busy we are per hour. And it's always astounding to us, even as librarians, to find out just how busy we can be throughout the day. And believe it or not, per average hour that we're open, we have 65 people walk through our doors. So that's more than a person per minute. So you can just imagine over 600 people per day coming through the library. We're open about 59 hours per week without holidays. And it just makes it really phenomenal to see that many people utilizing our resources. So that's a 12% increase from 2013. So far be it from people to believe that the library is slowing down. No, it's much the reverse. We're seeing more people coming in to ask questions, to use our wireless, to just sit and use our spaces for quiet space, to use our computers, and a whole host of things that we have available, and not to mention the books. We also have an average of 98 items checked out per hour. So you can just see how busy we are via the self-check and also via the front desk. People asking questions to make requests to get items from throughout the region. As Mary mentioned, we're part of the Kichigami Regional Library System. So we have 9 libraries that we share items with, as well as throughout the state. If you can't find it through our library system, we will definitely do our best to find it for you. And we have a pretty good record about doing that. So you can try to stump us, but we'll do our best to make sure we find the things that you're looking for. If we do bring it in through the state, really it's only here in probably 5 to maximum 14 days before you get that item in as well. So it's a fairly efficient system. One other thing that really surprised me was that we have a volunteer giving an hour of their time per open hour. We have over 3,100 hours of volunteer service. And so all of the items that you see, the 98 hour per hour, are then shelved by volunteers. We have no staff paid to shelve our items. So we've got a really great set of not only staff but volunteers that support us in every way. So that's pretty exciting. And in 2014, we had some really big achievements. We were very fortunate to receive a grant from the Otto Bremer Foundation, and we were able to purchase 11 laptops. So we have a laptop lab as well as 11 iPads. So, and with that, we were able to, I think it's over 170 classes that we were able to do in 2014, as well as 750 people attended those classes, and we saw some fabulous responses. Only 94% surveyed agreed or strongly agreed that they learned a valuable skill in that class. So as you can just imagine, technology whizzing by us, we're all trying to learn that next thing, what an iPad is, how to use it, and there's some really scary steps in there. Yeah, Mary. She's been doing an excellent job with her iPad, I must say. But being able to use a touchscreen versus the computer, and even using the computer before that. So now we're just getting layers upon layers, and it's really important that the community has a venue to be able to learn how to use those skills. This year especially, we've seen that our federal tax forms aren't coming in. We're not receiving just the form. We don't get the instruction booklets. And to tell people that they need to now do these things online, they need a way to learn how to do them online. It's not necessarily a natural thing for people, nor do they have access at home. So the library is really trying to take that step and be our community's resource to learn basic classes. For the most part, we do 2-hour classes, and we make it so they can come in, they're free classes, they can just do the 2 hours, they're not signing up for a long period. So it takes away some of that fear and anxiety of, oh, I need to commit to a whole month of classes. No, you come in and you learn this thing, and if it's something that's engaging to you, you take the next class up and you learn a little bit more. So we've been really happy with those results, and we're continuing to use staff in-house to make those classes possible as well. Another very exciting, if you haven't been to the library, I highly recommend it. We also have these beautiful agate lights that were provided through the Legacy Amendment, through the Art Aware grant, also through the Kitchigami Regional Library. And so Greg Rosenberg put together those lights as well as some stained glass that are over the library's main entrance. So now when you walk into the library, it creates that imagination and the creativity feel that you really want to have an innovating place create. And the next step to that is to get the kids involved. One of the biggest pieces the library does is engage our preschool, our early literacy piece. They're not yet in the education system. We're trying to reach out to them so parents understand you can educate your children because you are your child's first teacher, and we want to make that interesting and fun and engaging. So we do that through story times, and we also do that, you can see this awesome boat. We were very fortunate to receive a grant through the Minnesota Children's Museum, and they gave us our second stage to our early literacy environment. So the kids can learn the 6 skills as outlined through the Public Library Association's Every Child Ready to Read, and engage in hands-on learning. As you know, education has completely changed from just reading the books, but also to do things beyond in that second, to develop your vocabulary by playing with puppets or playing with dolls and getting the children and the parents interacting in a way that's meaningful and lasting. I'm hoping each one of you has some memorable experience of the first time that you went to a library as a child or with your parents. And we need to take that one step higher, because kids today have so many other things that they're engaged in and have iPads. So there's those things as well, and we want to make sure that when they remember the library, not only do they remember all the books that they took home, they also had a great experience in being able to learn different things too. So we've got a lot planned for 2015 as well. Some of the big things that are coming up, we did, continuing with that early literacy piece, we just received a grant through the Initiative Foundation, and we'll be starting a program called 1,000 Books Before K. And this is going to be a multi-year stage that parents read with their children, and when they get those milestones, we'll keep them going and encouraging them to continue to read and move forward with teaching their children themselves as well, and just teach them how basic it can be. With the reading the books, you can also teach them the letters and the phonic sounds and have fun at the same time of doing it. So our children's program is another great piece that we've seen huge growth because we've been focusing fairly heavily with it. And Darcy Dwyer is our children's librarian, and she's done a phenomenal job as well. So we're gearing up for a summer reading program. It's always fun to talk about summer this time of the year, so we're ready to talk about it. And we're really excited to do Read to the Rhythm. So we'll have lots of music and bands and lots of fun things to do in that regard. And we're always doing adult programming and a lot of regular programming, which I've listed on this sheet for you as well. One other thing that we're hoping to do, and hopefully we'll hear soon, is a seed library. Part of the Crow Wing County Energized, we try to outreach and collaborate with as many groups as we can, and since that initiative, as well as the Walking and Biking Committee, has taken on a new healthy aspect, we are hoping to provide that as well through a seed library. And what that means is that we're going to be encouraging people. They'll get free seeds through the grant, and then we'll try to give them information as well as do classes and teach them how to save their seeds to use them again in the next year. Over the last I don't know how long, we've kind of lost that whole idea that we should save our seeds to use them in the next year instead of just buying them again. We're hoping to kind of bring that idea back around through this program. So, I'm not sure how long I've talked.
You got
but
a minute.
I got a minute. That's not too bad. So with that, I definitely encourage any questions. Do you guys have any questions that you have for me about what the library is currently doing or ideas of things that we can do in the future as well?
I just would make a statement that that is one arena that this city can be really proud of. It's amazing to go in there, feel the love.
We've definitely love what we do, and the staff do too, and I hope everybody sees it as they come in. We've really been hiring a lot of new faces, and it's been phenomenal to see everybody grow together too. So excited. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jolene.
Yeah, thank you for all you
Thanks,
do.
Jolene. Good job.
Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions as well.
Thanks so much.
Well, we'll start the city council meeting here with call to order and roll call. Okay.
Mayor?
Here.
Bevins?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Borkenhagen?
Here,
Hilgert?
Here.
Cope?
Here.
Pritchett?
Here.
Sheeler?
Here. Roll call. Pledge allegiance, I mean.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to add something to the agenda.
Okay.
I'd like to add item 8 under unfinished business, item 8E, a report from our attorney. If you recall, the first week in February, I asked him to provide some logical discussion regarding the situation on 8th and Juniper, and he promised he'd have it to us by the end of February. We haven't gotten it back. There's a lot of citizens with particularly involved with St. Francis School that are waiting for that. We haven't seen it from you yet. I purposely just held off last time, but I really think we need a report. I think those citizens that stood here for 2 meetings in a row deserve some sort of answer. We all received a confidential memo regarding the attorney's position on this, and I want to respect that, but on the other side of the coin, I think those citizens had some good questions that really, a month later should be answered. So I'd like to have that as an agenda item. Thank you.
And then on the consent calendar, I would like to move the minutes off for discussion, and I don't know, should I put them under 8F, or would that be the?
You could just take them right after consent.
Make it 6A,
Yes, sir.
or,
Yes, that's fine. 6A.
okay, we'll make it 6A.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the amended agenda, item number 6, first off.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, we have
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move to adopt the consent calendar also as amended.
Second.
we have a motion, we have a second, will be roll call.
Bevins?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Borkenhagen?
yep.
Hilgert?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes. Then we'll move to item number 6, presentation, community policing project.
Actually, you want 6A minutes?
Oh, okay. I can do that first, yep. Okay, we'll go to 6A. What I was wondering on the minutes here, and I know that, I would like to see it referred to Personnel and Finance Committee for more discussion on the minutes themselves. And I've been kind of going through, there's some, errors and mistakes, and, instead of kind of going through them, and I pointed them out in here, but I was wondering if we could have back our person that took the minutes, and I was wondering if I can have that request take, at least taken to Personal and Finance Committee, and have the person, was it Nikki?
We can do that right here, right now. There's no need to take it back to the committee. What changes do you have, sir?
Okay, I have been a few changes. And I just, in the past, there was more minutes taking and more description of the minutes, and I don't see that, we're cutting and cutting and cutting to the point where, and I'll just, being now that he's asked. Let's just go on page 1. It says the chair announced that the closed session, I didn't announce it, that was Patrick Russo that announced it. Then we'll go to page 2, landlord informational, and it was suggested that the rates, and I was just wondering who suggested it. When I look at the minutes, you don't know in the minutes who even suggested it.
Because we can add and subtract based upon the comments of the council without that other person. We can bring that person back, but if you tell us what you want added, more language like you're talking about, we can definitely put more in there.
Okay, and that's why I was just wondering. And then page number 4, the resolution number 06-15, I voted no on there, and it says I voted yes here on the bottom. And, and then I was looking at contractor overpayment informational, we don't mention anything that it was, on that or placement of garbage. I just noticed, and then also I was looking on page 5, Mr. Higgins, owner of BIC, addressed the council, and it doesn't even have anything on what he addressed the council on. And then I'll go to page number 6, and under new business, NGPA Annual Meeting Initiative Foundation Award. We had discussion there, and Patrick, you did an update, and then we had Mary volunteer, and none of that information is on there. So I just was looking at the shortcutting and the minutes, and I just thought they were pretty vague, and I was just wondering if we can get more information, if it takes more, so that when you look at them, and it'd be less mistakes and more information. So I was just going to refer it to Personal and Finance Committee to see if we can get it. Because last week, and I don't want to bring it up, but there was a council member that wasn't here that was on the minutes, or, in the minutes that second the motion. So, I'm just trying, to kind of clean it up a little bit.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
first I'd like to move that that the minutes be corrected as you suggested.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
I think our administrator says that he can do do more what we're looking for. I certainly think he's shown us time and time again he can do what he says.
Okay.
But on the other side of the coin, if the minutes are lacking due to cuts in finances, then I think it does belong on personal and finance. Because if they're not reflecting what we need to see,
Yes.
and it's a financial situation, then we need to make the decision that we want to see more and spend more, or we don't. So with that being said, I think let's give it two meetings to see how things go through, and I'm absolutely positive the administrative staff will listen to any suggestions by any of us.
Okay.
So and then if things don't work out, but my recommendation would be to let's go 2 meetings. I think at least you've given some basis for improvement.
Okay. Thank you so much for everything, and thanks for
Yep.
allowing this. So then we'll go to 6, presentation, community policing project, COP. And Police Chief Quiston is going to do an update. We've got some great information here, and he's got some.
Thank you. Maybe just to start out with, just to kind of walk you through some of the things that we did for the implementation of this. I don't think with that initial information that I provided you with my brilliant map of the city, but this was roughly just going back to what I described in the memo. When I first started with the police department and before the computer age, we did activity logs, and they were broken down into grids. So all calls were assigned to a grid. And so that was kind of the foundation for at least dividing the city up. We went back to our original grids. They're described, at least in descriptive terms, there at the front page of that memo where we talked about grid 1 being downtown, and then it goes to southwest and kind of goes in a clockwise fashion around the city, ending in the south grid. So at that time, with our supervisors meeting, I can't remember if it was the one in the end of January, I think I sat down with the supervisors, and after we agreed on what the grid was going to be, we looked at the team members of the patrol division and then split them up to the different respective grids. So we got all those assignments issued, and then I went over the plan with the supervisors and kind of tweaked it a little bit before you got it, so that we could be on the same page as far as what our implementation was going to be. So we started that effective February 1st. And I think so far it's worked pretty good. There's been a lot of questions from the patrol staff because it was a pretty good transition from them and how we were doing things to the change. And I think right away, the biggest parts of it that I see significantly different for us is there's more ownership and involvement on the patrol staff level, and I think that increased everyone's awareness of what was going on. And I think being monitored by the patrol sergeants, I think then there's not a gap between what we were doing before, where we had one person basically in charge of it all. So now it's spread out with everyone, and I think that'll keep the communication happening quicker with the property owners and the rental authorities, as I described them in there. In just the month of February now, as I'm starting to get some of the statistics wrapped up for my monthly report that you'll get in March, it looked like we had 16 notices sent out of conduct on premises, 2 of which actually escalated to requesting written management plans. One was technically at the end of January, but we squeezed it in under the new plan. And fortunately for that one, the rental authority was already working on an issue with the tenant, so our contact to them was really secondary with a good plan that they already had in place. But it did require them to submit the written management plan, which we received, and then we just followed up with them to make sure that they didn't have any problems executing the plan. And that one came down to vacation of a tenant. They originally gave him a notice to vacate. He didn't leave, and then they started to move towards the eviction process, but then he did leave, so that one was resolved, and reviewed their lease with them and made sure it had the crime-free addendum. The other one was at the end of February, so we're still working with them. I just received their written management plan today. So I see a lot more proactive work, and I think better communications as things move forward with this. Mostly, too, I was just looking for an opportunity to get some feedback from you on what your thoughts were on the plan that we submitted, and if you were satisfied with what direction you think we're going at this point. I think the big thing for us now is, as we're implementing this, we're still looking at evaluation of it too, because I think we've already recognized one of the challenges we're going to have is shifting our mentality from the old method, where we basically automatically cranked out letters on a lot of stuff. Now we're really looking at letters that under the conduct on premises ordinance give us the authority to take some action when we don't see things changing on rental property. So with that, I'm concerned that maybe we lost some of the communication, that now we really don't have that authority to send the letters out. So staff right away brought that up and said, well, what about this? You know, this is a good thing that we should probably be talking to property managers about. And so we've almost got to look for, okay, which ones are we going to be able to use and keep track of for the ordinance purpose, and which ones are just going to be good practice to keep property owners up to speed on what's going on in their property. Did you have any questions regarding
Can
it?
you give a, for example, when you're talking about the difference between just a good policing practice compared to conduct?
That's kind of the challenge. When you look at the ordinance, the 425-2020, and you look at those 6 things that it breaks down for conduct on licensed premises, you know, the ones that we really see as the ones that are going to be ones that we have a lot of involvement with are like disorderly conduct. If we go somewhere where there's fighting, we write some tickets or arrest some people for disorderly conduct. Noise-related issues, you know, I've really encouraged them to be real familiar with the noise ordinance, write written warnings or write citations when it's appropriate. So there's still other things that occur at the property. I'm trying to give you a good example of what something like that would be, that we've probably sent notices for in the past that we wouldn't now.
What about the arena of, because we'll be discussing snow removal and sidewalk?
And now that was a
anything that
nuisance
falls
inspection
in?
thing that was done by the city, the building inspector or the rental property inspector. That was one of the shifts when we lost our crime prevention specialist. Those nuisance things, the tall grass, snow removal, garbage on property, stuff like that. That responsibility shifted over to Scott Sadusky or someone in the building department. That really wasn't part of our involvement in that. But maybe to get back to Sue's question, I'm trying to think. Maybe if we went to an underage drinking party where it didn't necessarily constitute, like the subdivision 3 of the conduct on premises says, you know, it prohibits the unlawful sale of alcoholic beverages. Well, still, if we go to an underage drinking party, the landlord, the property owner should do that. So we look at, okay, that's definitely something that we're going to stay in contact with, and we have, and we just recently had some. And so, but yet, using that letter to then move forward with action on a rental license doesn't really fit in the criteria here. So that's where we have to be careful. It's like, okay, we had some contact with them. We sent them a letter saying we wrote 2 tickets for underage consumption at your rental property. We wrote a violation for social host ordinance, but we couldn't prove the unlawful sale of alcoholic beverages. So that doesn't fall under one of these 6 exceptions. So, like something I stressed with the staff that was important is that first letter being one of these things is almost equally as important as the second letter, because without the first letter being a violation, then it doesn't make the second letter the second letter. So we see that as kind of a challenge. You know, I've had a lot of conversation with Rick Fargo about the ordinance, and what I'd really like to do is have more time under our belt instead of jump the gun and say we got to change it now and then in 3 months change it again. I think there's some good stuff here for us to work on for the time being, and I really see us being able to utilize this under the new plan and have some good effect.
Corky, and I want to thank you. On February 26th at 4 o'clock, we were with St. Francis. There was a parent meeting there, and Patrick was there, and I was there, and Sue, and there was a lot of questions. I don't know if Patrick's got some of them, but one of them was, you know, the officers that are on the grid.
Right.
You know, if that would be something that you could release, you know, like the St. Francis, the officers that will
Yep,
be there.
good question. And I've made our front desk staff aware of that, who that is. So at any time, if somebody calls in and asks for it, they certainly can, and we can respond directly back to Father Tony or the school, because I think Patrick did forward me some of those questions, and we'll get it. That, in particular, grid number 4, which is north side, that's Officer Brady Prince and Officer Tony Rundy.
And then the other thing was, and Chip kind of alluded to, is when you go to these places like that for code enforcement and you see junk and stuff like that, can that be something that the police department also reports to, you know, to City Hall? And
we do, and we have been. They've got lots of records of that. We get that a lot of time, because that was one of the questions from the staff, and I'm glad you brought it up, because traditionally then what we did was they did an ICR, initial complaint report, and in the disposition of it they requested forward to city inspections. So we didn't change that, because I didn't want to confuse them and say, no, junk in the yard or stuff like that. That stuff's still getting passed on.
Okay. Yeah. And go ahead, Patrick.
One of the things we talked about in personnel and finance probably is relevant here too, when we're talking about having information when you contact the landlord, or if they have a management company working with you on that property. I think the suggestion is that we contact both.
And that's what we have been doing,
Okay,
just to make sure that so that we're protected, so that if it comes time where we have an enforcement action, that we're not caught, that we didn't follow as it's prescribed in the ordinance. So we recognize that a lot of the properties have a different person managing it than what's listed as the owner, but we also recognize that if it's one of these 6 violations, we're going to be notifying both people, because we feel that the owner should be made aware of it, but yet they've contacted us and told us they want us to work with the property manager or agency that they're using, so we have been notifying them both.
And following that line of thought too, from the comments of Gary, the meeting Gary and Sue attended, the St. Francis really wanted, if there is a management company involved, they appreciate that, and as far as the management plan being submitted probably from a management company, but regardless, if there's a management plan being submitted or being required, is because violations of the ordinance have taken place, and the recommendation clearly was make sure not just the landlords or the representative, but the property owner is there also, because this has risen now to such a level to where everybody needs to be involved in attending the rental meetings that you guys are having. I know this next meeting coming up next month is more of a training session.
That's right.
But they should still be there. They need to take the time, be responsible for their properties, and we know that we have good property owners in the city, but when it rises to that level where we've had a couple of offenses in the management plan, is that we start considering adding that they be present at more of the meetings each year.
Sure, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I liked your plan, Corky. I thought it was great, and of course, the implementation will be the real test, but how would you treat it if it was private property? The whole emphasis has been on rental, but you have private property where you can also have all of those egregious things going on. So what do you do then?
True, good question, and you're not the first person to ask that one. If we look at the conduct on licensed premises ordinance, that doesn't give us the authority to do that. It talks specifically about tenants. But that doesn't mean that the same kind of behavior and the same kind of incidents to be tolerated. I mean, I still look at, that's one of the big reasons why I was really in support of that social host ordinance. That really holds accountable regardless of whether you're a tenant or a homeowner, that you're responsible for hosting an underage drinking party. So there are other tools that we do have available. It's just, I don't see, it's almost, with the rental property, that I think is more leverage over the people than in the circumstances you described. But that still doesn't mean that if there's not, a statute or an ordinance or some other kind of violation, that the police have the jurisdiction and authority to enforce, that we wouldn't still do what we could.
Thank you.
Corky, and, in this meeting in St. Francis, and I see a lot of parents here that were also part of the meeting, but, and I'm going to go back to Patrick, but there was a lot of questions that they threw at us, and I'm hoping that they got answered for the people that came tonight for that too. And I don't know if you saw this, but I don't want to.
That's the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The St. Francis agenda. There
Sure.
was a
Yep,
lot
and
of
I did
questions.
see that prior to the meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
and I think we answered most of them, and I'm just hoping that we got them all covered. Maybe Patrick can elaborate if he sent the memo off.
What I did is I sent a memo to the involved staff, we could include Jeff and Mark and Tim, I believe, and Connie and Corky, about just summarizing the comments that we did receive from that meeting about the management plans, increased standards, if at all possible, different blight questions that just talked about there, increasing fees to make up for the added time. If you're submitting a management plan, I don't believe we required an additional fee.
No,
right now.
we didn't, right.
There's obviously already been 2 police calls there. There's going to be your time and other staff time and follow-up. So the fees associated with that to cover our cost, not to make profit. And we're just talking about covering our costs.
Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, it's something we didn't take into consideration, because you're right. I think just the staff time alone and the change in, how we had to implement things in our computer system, and now the monitoring of it, the work associated with subsequent plans, there's definitely staff time involved.
Yeah, and I don't know, and I'm going to ask Patrick, when do we go into, okay, and I'm going to throw this out there, there was a window boarded up, and it's okay from City Hall to put boards on the window to board it up versus the glass that needs to be put in. They bring this issue up to us, and they look at us, and I look back, and it says to me in the code that, they're supposed to put the window back in, but I heard that it's okay from city to put boards on it, and they don't, and I had a mixed feeling on it, and
Sure.
they do too. And I'm wondering,
Yeah, I did some additional follow. I found the memo from Scott Sadusky, who had worked with him on that, and it was late January. And the situation was that the window that was broken was into a closet. It was the back side of a closet. And so a window was not required for that room. So the property owner would have the ability then to close or board that window
Okay.
or that up. It, appearance-wise is one thing, but it met code as far as it was not a required window.
okay. And I just want to try to be clear,
Great question.
yeah. Any other questions for, go ahead.
Well, I just
Steve.
want to say thanks, Corky. I mean, I'm not happy to hear that there's 2 other houses that have management plans, but I'm glad to hear that you're being proactive on it and getting these plans in, and we're following the ordinance now, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think some of this will start to have a deterrent value as we move forward, and more people, not only is this police awareness, but the community's awareness and things, and start to see the position that we're taking on them, and I think that in itself will have a deterrent value. So I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to see some significant changes as a result of some of this.
And I did ask that question, to the St. Francis parents, was there less activity at this house? And they said far less. It's just, and that was a good sign. So everything that we're doing is working. We're going in the right direction.
Yep, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. So then we'll move on to item number 7, council committee reports. Mr. Bevan, Safety and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Item number 1.
We're getting, I don't want to start with
You don't want to start with number 1?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 1 is Crow Wing County tax forfeit lot request. We've got a request from Crow Wing County to classify a tax forfeit lot to be classified as conservation and offered for sale at the next land auction. You can see on your map, this is a piece of property way down on the golly, where in the heck is this? It's on the end. Down by the college football field on a dead end street. And the motion is to approve the request from Crow Wing County, and I so.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 2 is improvement number 1504, 2015 crack seal project. The motion is to approve the engineer's request and award the bid to Anderson Brothers for the low quote of $24,557.50, which is 7.9% above estimate. And I so move.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, question.
Go ahead, Mary.
Is that money in the budget? Is there adequate money so that we won't see an overrun?
It was part of our, if I can, Mr. Chairman, it was part of our 2015 capital improvement program to be funded from the construction fund. So,
Does that answer it, Mary?
Yes, thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same side opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 3, improvement number 15-02, the 2015 seal coat project. The motion is to approve the low bid from Aztec Construction in the amount of $128,970.58. Since this is roughly $21,000 under budget, the move is to approve the bid from Aztec.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same side opposed, motion carries. Item number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 4 is historic water tower update. I'm going to turn this over to our engineering staff and our planning staff for some reasonably good news on this project.
Jeff, go ahead.
if I can, Mr. President. First item, back when we realized that we were having a problem with that delamination on the face of the water tower, we contacted the League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust to see if we had any coverage. It took them quite a while to review it. Actually, what they needed was a copy of the engineering report that identified the cause of those materials falling off the structure. They took a look at it and determined that we do not have coverage to cover the cost of renovation of the structure, but we did have coverage to cover the cost of the investigation to determine the cause. So with that, we did receive a reimbursement from the League of Minnesota Cities in the amount of $6,862.83 to reimburse us for the cost of that initial study. And our total into that was about $9,400 so far, and that included the investigation to determine the cause and then recommendations for the repair. The League did not reimburse us for the investigation, or rather the recommendation for the repairs.
Grant? Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
The other one is Mark's.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, we were successful in getting a historic grant to examine the repair of the water tower roof.
And the grant dollars were
$10,000.
$10,000. Committee talked a little bit about that. Go ahead, Mr. Bevins.
The only we were thrilled. Thank you, Mr. Oscarden, and also engineer, that we have some things coming back on the water tower. The comments out at the committee were just that we want to continue to disclose where we're going with this, because we have the potential to have a huge expense here with this thing, and I imagine there's going to be, and already has been, some public input as far as articles in the newspaper, and we want to continue to be forthright in what we're doing and where we're going with this before we get into a huge financial commitment.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Elsether?
Yeah.
The falling pieces and the danger and stuff like that, is that passed now? Did we take care of that, or is that going to be a continued problem until we fix it?
It's going to continue to be a problem until it's fixed. We're fortunate this winter that it hasn't been very wet, so hopefully there's not an awful lot of moisture. Going through freeze-thaw cycles in back of that coating, but I think from time to time we will still have pieces popping off.
Okay.
I have a question, if I
Go
may,
ahead.
Mr. Chair. What are the criteria for the use of the $10,000 grant? I assume we can't just use it for any old.
The application was to conduct a historic structure analysis, I believe the term was. And essentially what that does is reviews the history of the structure and I think somewhat documents the historic nature and the historic condition of the structure. The second part of it is to investigate the possibility or feasibility of constructing a domed-type roof back on the water tower to bring it back to its original appearance. I think the rationale for getting this grant and doing the historic structure analysis was that seems to be a prerequisite to being able to apply for being successful in other grants from the Historical Society, potentially for renovation of the
And
structure.
who will do this critique?
We will have to go through an RFQ process. I believe the contract requires that we solicit RFQs from at least 3 firms and a selected firm to do that structure analysis.
Okay, and so when that's done, will the limit be the $10,000?
Yes.
That'll be very clear.
That's going to be
in the
very-
RFP, and we'll identify what we expect with that.
Yes.
And how soon will that take place?
We'll have to try to put together that RFP over the next month or so, and I would think the selection process probably the month after. We have to be complete with this project by March 1st of 2016, so I would think by next fall or into the winter we should have a completed document, and that should put us in a position to be able to apply for additional grants.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Jeff. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have one more. Oh, I'm sorry.
Gabe, you got one?
Somebody else
No,
had his
okay.
hand up. I had a call from a constituent who asked me, what did Pipestone do? They obviously have a water tower like
That was brought
ours.
up in committee.
Could somebody just give a brief report so the constituent will know the answer?
Well, I can, Mr. President. The Pipestone's water tower is kind of like ours. It's no longer in operation, but unlike ours, they didn't do any sort of a renovation project. It's still pretty much intact to its original design. It does not appear to be having the structural issues that our tower is having.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chip.
Quick, Ken, being as this is regarding the insurance company, we're still covered for as pieces continue to fall off and bounce off of cars and whatever, you're still covered for that.
Well,
Go ahead, Jeff.
We could follow up and verify that. but
I
would
think
assume
I
yes,
think we'd
because
want to
we-
verify that with them. I suspect that we've got some liability coverage,
Okay.
but
If not, we better.
You want to proceed there, Mr. Bevins, with the next item?
Thank you. Item number 5 is the downtown landscaping. As you recall, a carryover from last meeting, we had a request by a landowner, Mr. Mank, to take over all the baskets, or not the baskets, all the landscaping on the corners of 7th and Laurel. That brought up a situation of what to do with the rest of the stuff. Do we continue to try and assess what was left and let him take these forward and then eliminate him from the assessment role? There was some other discussion regarding what about the plumbing costs to start up the irrigation, storage of irrigation, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. There was a number of minor issues, but the recommendation from the planning department, from the planner, was it would be much easier to either do it all or not. And meaning that as we've done, where all of the landscaping is under the city's, I don't want to say completely under the city's watch or responsibility, because that particular property owner has taken over the one that's right in front of their business, as well as one in front of Kokomoon. So the motion out of committee is to continue the way we've done it, where all of the property owners share in all of the expense. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? I just have one quick question for Mark that was brought up by Ed. The hanging size plants, those poles only can handle currently what the size you have there, and you can't put, like you had said, from Park Rabbits, the bigger plants that you showed us today, the bigger hangers, because the poles won't support. Is there an answer to that?
I don't have one right now, no.
Okay, can we look that up for Mr. Mink? Okay, thank you so much.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to have an awfully hard time supporting this motion. I think that we should encourage property owners who are willing to show the initiative that Mr. Mank and the Cocoa Moon property owners have done. They've done a marvelous job at no expense to the city, taken a great deal of pride in what they do, and I understand the mechanics would be a little more difficult in excluding them from the general assessment role if they were allowed to do what they are proposing to do. Nonetheless, I don't think the difficulty in doing that should be the impediment that says, no, we can't do it. I think the encouragement of that is something we should be trying to expand on, and I'm sure your committee had a lot of discussion about that, but it seems to me that the encouragement to people like Mr. Mink and Cocoa Moon are the kinds of things that we should be building on.
Thank you. Anybody else, Gabe?
I just want a little clarification. Is the motion to not allow anybody to deal with their planters anymore?
Nope.
No.
We will still allow what's gone on the last year, 2 years,
Yep.
however long, but not give away all the planters and change assessments and all.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. Mr.
Just,
Hubbard.
I think the committee was probably in agreement with Mrs. Goeb. The concern was not the 5, not the 4 that Mr. Mank wanted to do, and the one that Cocoa Moon is doing, which, by the way, Mr. Mank and Cocoa Moon both paid their landscaping assessments last year. The concern was with the rest of them. I'll be direct. The concern was with the rest of them, that we would then end up with a difficult situation. And I will let your imagination run wild as to how that could work out. So, but the expectations were you can't. I mean, the thought process was, boy, we agree. Wouldn't privatization of the entire project be ideal? I think that, I mean, in some way, epitomizes the American dream. A pot of dirt and something to grow in it, and I'm only being, I am not meaning to be facetious at all. However, I don't think everybody shares my vision. And I'm
with
just
that-
going to leave it at that, because
And with that note, Jeff brought up also at all the meetings and all the attention it's got, it's only been 2 people that have been showing up, Mr. Peringer and Mr. Mink, and we are not getting the full downtown support on this, and they're not showing up at the meetings, and we're just rehashing this over and over. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side.
Aye.
Yeah.
5-2.
Yep, a 5-2 vote. Motion carries.
Thank
Item
you, Mr.
number
Chair.
6.
Item number 6 is a property at 410 12th Avenue Southeast. I'll simplify it by stating the motion first. And that's, the motion is to follow the engineer's recommendation and purchase the property at 410 12th Street Southeast. I believe it would be for the amount of back taxes of $3,500 roughly, plus an additional approximately $1,500 in demolition costs. Is that correct, Mr. Engineer? And I so move.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Bevins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Explaining and speaking in favor of the motion. The situation is such that if we let this run to fruition, to go through the complete forfeiture procedure, the likelihood is it's going to cost us considerably more in dollars and cents and time. And so that cuts it right to the chase. We have a need for the back half of the property for some stormwater retention, and expectations are that there's a possibility of recovering some of our investment by selling off the front part. Staff has already started the process to notify people, or at least not started the process, but made provisions to start the process to notify people like Habitat and others of the availability of the front part of the property. But at this point, we feel it's in the best interest of the city to make this investment.
Mary?
Mr. Chair, could the property be sold privately? If I'm reading it correctly, the lot that could be sold or used for housing would be 50 by 150?
Yes.
And I believe that is applicable for single-family house. So the concern I raise here is that, in all likelihood, both HRA or Habitat would expect to get it at a tremendously reduced cost, whereas we may have the possibility of selling it at something closer to what market value might be. And I think if we can, we should. And I think all of those options should be explored, because this is not our money, this is a taxpayer's. So I would like to know or have clarification if that will occur.
Thank you, Mary. Go ahead, Jeff.
If I can, we have touched base with HRA, and they looked at it and thought there were some issues with the lot. They may not be interested in it. Habitat looked at it last year. They thought that the back part of the lot fell off a little bit. They were going to take another look at it. At the time, their initial reaction was that they may not be interested in it, but they were going to take another look. With the elevations the way they are, it would be a nice lot for a walkout. And there is quite a level area up on by 12th Street. So, there's from my perspective, or our perspective, we think it is a decent buildable lot. We haven't contacted adjacent property owners to see if they would be interested, or just put it on the market for sale. But those certainly would be things that we would pursue to try to get whatever we can for the lot.
Okay, thank you.
So, Jeff, if this motion passes, citizens can contact, or anybody can contact the city to purchase this lot.
Once we close on it, demo the house. I would think that we would do that, get the lot cleaned up. Then I think we would have to go through some declaration of excess property and offer it for sale on sealed bids, or some sort of a process like that.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 7 is the 2015 a bus resolution, and I move to adopt a resolution for the 2015 Transit Bus Capital Purchase Change from a 400 to 500 series bus, which does include the additional $14,870.40, I'm sorry, $13,529.60 to be paid entirely by Crow Wing County, per county board decision, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. This will be roll call, but is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. It appears to me the city's outright share would be $7,217 about. Now, that money will have to come directly from the city's reserve in the bus fund. The council should be aware that we do not have that money in our current budget because of a lot of prudence and judicious use of funds over the years. We have a reserve. If our state, the purpose of the reserve was, I guess, twofold, it was kind of a cushion, but also when the state's participation declines, we would either have to raise rates significantly, reduce service significantly, or levy against for that fund. What we have chosen to do is be judicious and save a small reserve fund. Council needs to be aware that this money will come from that reserve fund. I'm going to support this motion, but at our next transit meeting, I do intend to raise the issue because we cannot start losing that fund, or we will be in a position of saying to the taxpayers, less service, more fees, or more taxes.
Thanks, Mary. Anybody else want to add to that for discussion? So we have a motion, we have a second, we'll go with roll call.
Bevins?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Borkenhagen?
Yep.
Hilgert?
Yes.
Go.
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 8 is, I have 3 motions on the League of Minnesota Cities support resolutions. The first motion would be to acknowledge a receipt from the engineer regarding our request on legislative agendas and professional association platforms. I will move to acknowledge that receipt, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is this going to be roll call?
Nope.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you recall, we did request from our staff that whenever they're part of a body that might have a legislative platform, that we ask them to notify us. This is Mr. Halfesser's following that request. He is a part of the City Engineers Association of Minnesota, or CEAM, and that City Engineers Association of Minnesota, and that serves as a resource for the League of Minnesota Cities, but doesn't have its own agenda. So it's just I'd like to acknowledge that he did follow our request.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Bevins. Any more further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second part of this is the resolution number, and it's blank. You'll see behind it is last year's resolution and what this is. Let's make the motion first. I move to adopt a resolution supporting dedicated state funding for city streets. And I so move.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion, Mr. Bevins? And one question, do we get a resolution number now, or does that always come later?
Comes later, depending on your
Okay,
action.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What this is, and it's maybe easier to understand on last year's, but what this is on the streets that are not. Well, I could let the engineer explain it probably better.
Go ahead, Mr.
This one is essentially a new initiative. So to eliminate some confusion, the resolution behind it is one that was adopted last year for municipal street improvement districts. So that would be the second resolution. Mm-hmm. This one is the supporting the League of Minnesota Cities initiative to request dedicated state funding for city streets that are outside of the municipal state aid system. So this would be a dedicated funding source to fund the other 87% of city streets that rely solely on special assessments and property taxes for pavement preservation, reconstruction, resurfacing, those types of projects.
Thank you, Mr. Halstetter. Any more
I
discussions
have
or
a
questions?
question.
Go ahead, Mary.
Is there currently a funding bill before the legislature, an omnibus transportation funding bill?
There's there's the governor's proposal, and I think there have been some other proposals, but I don't believe that there's any hearings on specific proposals yet.
An omnibus bill at this point in time. They're still in the process of submitting all the bills.
Right.
I understand that the governor's bill clearly identifies a gas tax increase. And so I'd want to be certain that that isn't the purpose of this resolution. It's vague, it just says a one, but I wouldn't want this to be used in our name, the name of this city, saying, well, here's one from Brainerd, they are supporting a gas tax increase. Because if we do, then every council member should stand up and be counted and say, I do. I don't. So
Thank you,
I just
Mary.
think that I'm a little concerned about what this actually says.
Can I,
Go ahead.
Mr. President, if I can answer that question, any kind of a gas tax increase is going to be constitutionally dedicated to the Highway User Distribution Fund, so that will be distributed through the MSA system. So, so what this is supporting is not a gas tax increase. It would be some other funding source, because gas taxes automatically are going to go through the MSA system.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Because I think this is roll call, Mr. Bevins?
It is.
Okay. Patrick?
Bevins?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Borkenhagen?
Yes.
Hilgard?
Yes.
Cope?
Yes.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes, motion carries. Is there one more motion?
One more out of this, it's also a resolution, Mr. Engineer, correct? It
Yes.
would be a resolution enabling legislation to authorize the supporting dedicated state funding districts, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Jeff?
If I can, this would be, I guess, well, I guess what's the right term here? Readoption of Resolution 2413, dealing with municipal street improvement districts. And there's a variety of information attached in back of that regarding street improvement districts that's been put out by the League of Minnesota Cities. It's been an initiative that they have promoted for a number of years, and essentially what it would do is provide enabling legislation so that if cities so chose, they could establish these districts to help fund their pavement preservation projects, resurfacing, reconstruction projects, and to potentially be able to do that without special assessments or local levies and bonding. Basically, what it would do is require, if we wanted to do something of this nature, or any city wanted to do it, we would have to establish districts, establish a plan for improvement of roadways within the districts, and then all of the properties within the districts would be essentially assessed or a fee to fund those proposed improvements within the district. So it kind of spreads out the cost of improvements over a larger area and provides an alternate method of funding them so that cities aren't relying so much on either special assessments against adjoining properties or bonding or coming up with other funding sources to fund those improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Halstetter. Go ahead, Patrick.
So Jeff, you're asking that included in the packet is Resolution 2413. This is a revision of that one, is what you're saying?
Correct. This would be basically a readoption.
Just clarifying, okay?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah,
This-
Mr.
This will
Mr.
be roll
Chairman.
call. Oh, go ahead,
I'm
Mary.
not going to support this. I think this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It will, as you say, perhaps do away with assessments as we do them now. It will give people far less opportunity to speak, either for or against them. But it will still cost them money, the same or probably more. They could probably be assessed over and over, depending on where they live and how the district is constructed. Additionally, it takes away the current lawful requirement that the cost must reflect the benefit. And to me, although most citizens I don't think really know about that they should, but they don't, it's still there. The cost, the law says now, that the benefit to the property owner in an assessment must reflect the cost. It cannot exceed the cost. That is gone with an assessment district. I realize it's optional for a city to adopt it, even if it should pass. But I'm predicting that 44% of the cities will adopt it. And they won't reduce their taxes one little bit. It'll just be one more fee people will pay. And so I'm not going to support it.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody want further discussion on that? We'll start out with roll call.
Bevins?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Orkenhagen?
Yes.
Hildegard?
Yes.
Coe?
No.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Schuler?
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the end of item number 8. Item number 9 is improvement number 1415, which is the airport utility extension. We do have a couple of items under this one as well, but the first one would be to just a voice vote on accepting the staff recommendation of the approval of the professional services agreement with Short Elliott Hendrickson / WSN project team for $190,786, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you,
Motion
Mr.
carries.
Chair. Item 9B is a lost or local option sales tax update by yourself, sir.
Thank you. I contacted the city of Baxter in regards to where are we at with the local option sales tax, for this disbursement to the city of Brainerd. And I was told by the city of Baxter that Jeremy in financing, Todd Holman, city council, Mayor Darrell Olson, now that he's back, will meet and work on a proposal for the city of Brainerd. They'll also meet with their bond counsel for advice and figures that they plan on using to give to us. The first go around and basically they're going to invite us towards the end of the month, and they were kind of looking at, when they used the word us, who should go, and I had volunteered. Connie should be there, and Patrick should be there, and I was looking for somebody out of, S&P and the mayor. Would you be, okay? And this would be at the city of Baxter is actually going to invite us when they get this together this month, and then invite us to come there.
Jesus is fourth then?
Yes. And Baxter also told me that they're doing over $15 million in road projects this year, and they need to get these projects out early this spring, and that's why some of this loss was kind of put on the back burner with all the paperwork and stuff they're doing. And I have to thank Darrell for being the mayor, coming back and putting this. He took this loss thing and put it back on top, our local option sales tax money, and said, get this done before they start their project. So he's doing a great job trying to help us forward. So that's just an update on that, and we'll hear more, and they'll be in contact with Patrick. And Gordon Heike is still out with his leg or hip injury, and so basically that's why a lot of this got put off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And 9C is just an FYI that the first project management team meeting is 3 p.m.
On the
next Monday. We're at, Mr. Engineer?
That will be here at City Hall.
Here at City Hall, 3 p.m. next Monday at 3 p.m. in City Hall. Now it'll be the project management team. That's not really a public thing, but you can.
Yeah, who's all on that again?
Okay, Ken, council members, Sheeler, Hildegard, Borkenhagen, city administrator, myself, Jesse Fryhammer, Scott Magnuson
Oh, yeah.
from BPU, and I think we're inviting Jeff Wigg from the airport, and then it's the SEHWSN consultant team.
Thank you. Thank you. Heck of a good memory.
Thank you.
Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 10 is the Walkable Bikeable City Committee memorandum regarding snow removal. And the motion out of committee is to direct staff to continue to work with property owners and MnDOT to make the snow removal problem go away, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Bivens? In
That's
regard-
primarily just a letter writing campaign.
Yeah, we did receive some letters.
There was some discussion on the internet regarding stuff being passed around with citizens' concerns.
Yep.
Seems like certainly something we'd like. Our staff ensures me that we can probably do better.
So basically, the letter is to say to enforce the policy.
Yes.
Enforce the code, yes.
Okay.
To the best of our ability.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion carries. Item number 11.
Item number 11, our last update is a mobile food unit update. This is going to planning and zoning. Mr. Oscar, anything you want to mention to everybody besides what's in your memo?
No.
All right, it's self-explanatory, and that is there is a hearing planned for March 18th, 2015 at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting regarding the food truck status update. And that's it, end of report.
Thank you, Mr. Bevins. Mary, you want to take over on the next group?
Well, I'll certainly try. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, this Personnel and Finance Committee report. And our number one item was a conference call with Sharon Klump from Springstead and Associates, and it dealt with our city administrator search. It was more of an update from her identifying the issues that you have in your handouts and trying to determine if there were other things that the committee felt should have further emphasis and to see if the timeline is appropriate. And we believe that this is probably as quickly as it can be done. We wish it could be done more quickly, but I think we agree that this is a reasonable timeline. She will stay in touch with us. One thing that I brought out was that at the last time we had our search, we did not consider anyone from out of state because we had been told we would have to offer travel expense. And I felt we had lost out on interviewing what, at least on paper, was an excellent candidate. And so in raising the issue to her, Mr. Pritchett suggested Skyping if we chose to do that. So I think that's something that may be part of it in the future. So it's just a report unless there's some questions.
Just quick, another option that we
Yes.
do have is we could conduct a phone interview, and if we were interested, we could carry on from there. So we just kind of wanted to make sure we kept our options open for all candidates involved.
It sounds like a very ambitious schedule right now when I was reading it, so.
I think it's the best we can do.
And we already have 9 applicants.
Oh, wow.
So.
Mayor?
One of the things that's interesting is that Little Falls and Cross Lake are also looking for administrators.
Okay.
So, in other
Okay.
words, we're not the only one looking.
Okay.
Just thought interesting.
Thank you.
The next item is the authorization of the sale of fire trucks, and we have 2, very old, haven't been used, sitting there taking up room. The cost of repair would be more than the value of the trucks, and so the recommendation is to authorize their sale. Kevin Stunick, the fire chief, thought the very maximum we might get would be $1,000.
You have a motion?
Motion to authorize.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion, Mary?
Not unless you want to buy a truck.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion carries.
Okay. Item 4 is fire department fees. There was a memo in that, and I presume everyone has read it. It's been talked about for quite a while. The recommendation is to approve, and I move to approve and adopt the fire department fees, and there was one change, and it's under subdivision 3, and the pages are not numbered.
Yeah, the second page of the ordinance.
Can we get a second and she can go?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
And
Go
the
ahead
only
with the
change is
discussion,
to-
Mary.
The only change is to add "or." So it would read, any other services related to fire and/or rescue, as may occasionally occur.
Under 42103, subdivision 3.
So this motion carries that. Is there any further discussion on this, and would this be roll call?
Well, I just want to point out that it's not,
It's a first
this,
reading.
the second part is not part of this. That's scratched off of the agenda. This is just the first reading, not the
Okay.
adoption.
Not yet.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion carries. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 5 is the engineering department building
So we're not doing
inspector position, and there were 29, I believe, candidates for that. A couple of days spent
We need a motion.
I would move that we offer the job to Joshua Stewart, and at the rate of $22.01 per hour, which is step A of our salary administration plan.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Mary, go ahead with the discussion.
I think that should be adequate.
Oh, okay. Any further discussion on the hire? All in favor?
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next one is the first reading of proposed ordinance 1431, amending the city Brainerd Code section 1015, building permit fees, and I move the first reading.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion, Mary?
No more.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rental license renewal, and as you recall, we had discussion the last couple meetings about enclosing a letter with the renewal of the rental licenses, trying to clarify and also trying to establish a little more rapport with tenants and property managers. And so there's, I think you found a letter in there that's being recommended. And there is an old one in there that has boxes in it. That's the old one. The new one is in front of that.
Yeah.
So the motion is to approve the letter, and we were going to ask Eric, our attorney, to check if it is legal for us to require a tax ID number. That had received some discussion. So the motion is to approve the letter and ask the attorney to review the legality of requiring a tax ID number with the application.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. You want that answered now by,
If he can, otherwise, hopefully by the next meeting.
Eric, you're getting blindsided. Jeff is going to jump in.
If I can, when we were doing some research on applications from other communities, we ran into this, and someone provided us with a copy of the statute, and it's our understanding that the statute requires that for these licensings, that we're obligated to collect a tax identification number. So staff would certainly agree that that we would like to refer it to the city attorney to give us an opinion on whether or not we are required to collect that information.
That's all we're asking.
So we can basically go ahead with this motion without his opinion?
And then we
Yeah,
can-
and if we're not required to collect that information, then we'll take it off our form.
Okay. Chip?
Just a quick question. I'm just assuming that the answer is probably no, but it says if you're not presently attending the monthly rental property association or property owners meetings, we suggest you do that. There isn't any way that we can make that obligatory, right?
No.
Not that I can think of, no.
Because I've attended a few of those meetings now, and Rick and crew do an awesome job at getting people involved with. If you're going to be in this business, let's do it right.
Thanks, Chip. And we're going to have Eric go ahead and address 270. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that I believe that that's fine to collect the taxpayer ID number, but I will verify that and just let staff know
Good enough.
Thank you.
there's a problem.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion carries. Go ahead, Mary.
Item 8 was a review about, at his request, of the city planner, community development coordinator, safe job evaluation, and the points assigned. And we spent some time addressing it, and the method that had been used, and it was the same method used for everyone, and points assigned were assigned based on what appeared to be an objective method.
Is there a
So the
motion?
motion would be to do nothing at this point. New job descriptions will be forthcoming, to review it again when that's complete.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further explanation?
We
Go
basically,
ahead, Dave.
we're kind of looking at this, but if I can speak for Gabe a little bit, we both kind of agree with a lot of the points that Mark brought up, but due to some of the copyright law, we're unable to actually compare that position with other positions. So we want to see that, the job description, and look at it, because, you know, it is something that needs to be looked at. Mark brought up a lot of really valid points. So.
And I have to agree, Mark, when reading your report, you brought up a lot of valuable points there too. So I hope that we continue, like you said, looking at it.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Bevins.
I'm going to vote against this, only because I don't like motions that say we're going to do nothing. I've always voted against them, and I'm going to vote against this one. If we're going to do nothing, well, let's do nothing. I don't think I need a motion to do it. Nothing.
Good point.
I don't believe it's doing nothing.
That's what the motion says.
It's waiting for a new job.
My understanding of the motion out of committee was we're going to not do nothing. We are going to wait until we have the job. We're not done with the consultants yet.
I understand.
So we're going to wait till we have all of the information back from them, review that and the job descriptions along with what Mark has to present, and then make a decision, because I didn't feel comfortable trying to overturn what the consultants are telling us before we're done paying them the $25,000 to tell us what they're going to tell us.
And we want to just make sure that we do something about this, you know, once we get the information.
Is there
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
And then the other piece of it is that it's complicated. The Hayes rating system, or whatever system they use, is very complicated, and it isn't a matter of what we feel we're worth. It's the kind of work that you do, and what kind of weather, and the amount of danger that you're in while you're doing it, and the risk that is associated with harm. I mean, it's really complicated, and so those consultants do know what they're doing when they're assigning worth, and so it is a matter of let's look at the job description.
We talked about the complications in the methodology, and that's pretty dense stuff. So.
As long as the objectivity is
Mary,
there.
you want to amend
if
the
I may.
motion?
I'd just like to say, as long as the objectivity is there, and it appeared to be, there's no evidence that it was not an objective evaluation. And the objective is what the consultant is required to put into the report, not subjective. So I perhaps could change the motion to say no action at this time, but continued review as more information becomes available.
Is there such thing as a time frame, a time
I
zone that
don't
we
know when
can?
that'll be. We
look at?
did ask that, and our human resource coordinator said she's working on it, but she has a full plate, and it likely will be into the summer.
June-ish.
Yeah.
Well,
I
So
think that's.
can I have the motion restated, because I'm a little confused on the
Okay,
motion?
I changed it
Okay.
at your request
Yes.
to say no action at this time, but continued review as information becomes available.
Dave, you seconded that one?
You second that, Dave? The amended motion?
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 9.
Okay, airport security update, and a letter has been sent to the county, and it was included in your packets, and so that's just your for information, to talk about assistance from the county on the airport security. It's informational only.
Thank you. Item number 10.
Item number 10, information provided, and I would move that annual tax incentive information continue to be provided and with consideration of a different form.
We have a motion, looking for a second.
Second.
We have a second. Discussion.
Basically, when we were in committee, the information is sent to the newspaper in a pretty straightforward form, and what we're looking at is the other format is just sending it to us.
Easier.
Yeah.
Simpler.
So that's already been discussed.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 11, I think I'll hold because there was really no action that I can bring forward. And item 12, Mr. Chair, is a proposal for our workshop. Topics on the 4th, and we will not get through that agenda. But you are all welcome to come, and what we don't get through, we'll hold over for another time. And that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And just, I want to appreciate the committees and stuff. I appreciate the motion only up front for Patrick trying to write the exact motion down. And if it gets long, he's got 2 pages of paper and no motion, so.
Good thing he's got a tape
Yeah.
recorder.
Thank you, Dave, for following up on that. We're going to move to unfinished business. 8A, public hearing presentation, MS4 permit, annual hearing to review stormwater water-related city activities. Assistant City Engineer Fryhammer, no member. You want to have the public, open up the public hearing here, or you want to do the demonstration prior?
I suggest doing the presentation first and then...
Okay, we'll do the presentation first, and then we'll have the public hearing. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Just got a real quick presentation. For a lot of you, this is going to be a lot of review here, but we did have a few major updates on our MS4 this year, and we will have a bunch here in the near future. So just give a quick update of what was done this year and what we're going to be doing in the near future. Purpose of the meeting is basically to update on our MS4 permit, which were required by MPCA. Basically, it's a chance to allow the public to give feedback if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing to protect stormwater. What is our MS4? Basically, it's a stormwater pollution prevention plan. There's 6 minimum maintenance measures that we do. There's 44 best management practices that the city has committed to doing, like street sweeping, doing outfall inspections, having ordinances, things like that. So what did we do last year? Just some of the items we did. We inspected 24 outfalls, 12 ponds, stockpiles. We did clean out some ditches with the help of MnDOT. We did like the ditch on Business 371 south of Buffalo Hills. Did some work by Lum Park on that drainage ditch and cleaned a few other culverts out. We did 7 erosion control inspections, and this is something that with the new permit we're going to start doing a lot more. Obviously, development's been a little slow, but we will be doing this probably a lot more as we get more development, more building sites available. We did actually remove 2 more septics from the city that connected to city sewer, so that's a step in the right direction. We were down a little bit on our sanitary sewer cleaning, and that was mainly due to the amount of snowfall we had last year. So our goal is around 90,000 linear feet, and we only cleaned about 58,000. We did remove about 1,500 cubic yards of material off the street with our sweepings. And then the big project we did that last year was the rain gardens with the Soil Water Conservation District. This was in the Little Buffalo Creek watershed. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see them, but they're kind of in the Graydon Hills area. There's 2 on South 7th Street, 4 of them, I believe, on Cedar Street. But Soil Water really headed the project. We did assist them with the engineering and some of the inspection. But I think it was a pretty successful project. Most of it got finished in September, so it should look pretty good here this spring. We also had our first audit from the MPCA. So we did that process in, I believe, October. They did find no major deficiencies, which was good, so we were on the right track. That's a good step, but it was an audit of our old permit, our new permit, which I'll get to in a minute here, but then just a few other unfinished tasks that we're continually to monitor. Salt storage shed. Although this wasn't really identified as a deficiency in our audit, it still is an issue. As you can see, we are losing our salt every time it rains. That salt pile is ending up in the wetlands next to our shop. So that is something we continue to need to evaluate. Also, one of the other items we still have, we've talked about in the past a little bit, is the annual cleanup. The last couple of years we haven't done that. That is one of our best management practices that we do have on our list, so we do need to address that in some way. Items for next year, as we talked, I believe, a couple of meetings ago about installing 2 more rain gardens, applying for a grant. If we do that, that would be at Gregory Park and then possibly at Lum Park, right by the parking lot by the beach. And that's just a picture of basically the runoff. Right now it just goes directly from the parking lot into the lake. So possibly putting a rain garden there. As I mentioned, there's a new permit process, or a new permit in place beginning March 17th. So basically in 2 weeks, we have the bar has been set higher more or less. So we have to implement a bunch of new, we have to upgrade a bunch of our BMPs. They're basically not considered good enough by MPCA now. We've been following the lead of the Minnesota City Stormwater Coalition. They've been providing some guidance. Probably look at working with the City of Baxter and the Soil Water Conservation District on some of these BMPs to make sure we're consistent between the cities and also to save some time and manpower. This is kind of a summary list of what we're required to do. I'm not going to go through them all. Some of the major ones, which will probably be coming at you at next council meeting, we'll probably have some draft ordinance update language on erosion control ordinance, stormwater management ordinance, stormwater and urban runoff pollution ordinance. A lot of the other things are more policy related and just how staff needs to document it. So MPCA, so we basically say we're doing it one way and we follow a process. The other big item we'll be doing is basically MPCA is requiring us to have a lot more training of staff. So the way MPCA looks at it is we're going to need to basically train anyone who goes out in the field. So our street department staff, obviously, they're out dealing with a lot of the stormwater related stuff, but also police and fire department. They're the ones eyes on the street. If they see something, they're supposed to know who to call or how to get the problem addressed. So that stuff we'll be developing over the next couple months. Also, just continue to update our storm sewer map as projects get updated. So with that, if you guys have any questions or comments on where we're at or where we're going, otherwise,
I do, Mr. Chair. What's a BMP?
A BMP is a best management practice.
Oh, I should have known that. The second question is, obviously, it's a state mandate. Is there funding available?
There is no dedicated funding for this. Some of the funding that, like the rain garden project that the Soil Water Conservation District did was through legacy money, but that's obviously, you got to apply for that. So,
Mr. Chair, how about the training?
None of that is funded.
I suggest we send a letter to our legislators and let them know that once again we have a state mandate that will require some time and money, and that's what it is. If it's staff time, it's money. And that we believe, once again, that if they mandate it, they should pay for it.
Is that in form of a motion?
I'm making that a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
A good idea.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mary. if you're done with that, then we'll open up the public hearing. We have the public hearing, we'll open up at 8. Yes, why don't we do that before I open up the public hearing? Any kids that need their things signed for...
Come on up and we'll
Come
sign
on up
them.
and we'll do that, because we have a curfew that starts at...
And Corky went out to just make sure.
We don't want to get you.
Wait by your car.
Any one of the council members can sign it.
Anybody can
This is
sign.
a 10 o'clock curfew, right, during the week?
And thank you for being
Go
with
ahead.
us.
The mayor said that.
Thank you. Thanks for
I'm going to
coming.
give you some signatures.
He's
you
going
can't
to write
Maybe you'll
something
come
extra
back
on it.
again.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, Justin?
And now there's video proof that
Thank
you're
you.
here too,
Yes,
so.
thank you
Yeah, that's
very
for
much.
extra.
Thank you. And you could stay.
Are you kidding? They got their paper signed.
We'll go back to 8A. We'll have the public hearing on the MS4 permit. We'll open up the public hearing here at 8:54. Anybody here for the public hearing? Going once, going twice, 3 times. So we'll close the public hearing at 8:55, and it'll be open to council discussion. Any further discussion? Well, thank you, Jesse. Great job. It's great to see you come show up every once in a while.
I'm just going to make a
Oh,
comment.
there it is.
That, the ones over on Cedar, I just hope people realize that it's not, there's no curb there, or there's no, if they drive too far over the edge, they'll be down in a hole.
That'd be quite a ways over the edge, but yeah.
It becomes part of the project.
Careful, there's 2 kids that play in the one all the time, too, so.
Whose ward is that?
I don't know, but it's beautiful.
That's cool. Anyway.
Thank
I
you,
just had to
Mayor.
mention.
We're going to go to 8B, strategic planning update, and Mr. Wusso has asked a couple of times, and I haven't really responded real well, so I thought we'd put it on the agenda. First of all, I just want to say it's been almost 2 years since we worked on it, and we put, probably one of the city's best strategic plans together. And basically, to go back and update some of the stuff would be a real good idea, but we've got one busy schedules going, and I just wrote some of them down. The paper plant task force is, the tour that's going to be this month. We got the Brainerd Airport Utility Extension, the PMT that we got, and the kickoff going. Brainerd Fire Department open house, Personal and Finance Committee workshop. We got a council workshop on March 23rd. I think I wrote some more stuff down. So we've got a very busy schedule, and I just want to see if we can work something in for the strategic plan.
Could we wait at least a little bit? As you said, this is really crazy right now.
Oh, after
And I,
mid-April?
yeah, and I agreed. I wrote this down with the current administrator leaving, soon here, and we've
It
got
might be a May, June thing even.
Yeah,
Especially with him.
and maybe we can, incorporate the new city administrator as part
That'd
of
be a
the
good idea.
plan.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And then for him, it's gonna be drinking like, out of a fire hydrant
Or
because
her.
he's, yeah, or her,
Them.
him or her. So, should we just throw this back on the council agenda back in the first part of June?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so.
Quick question, you
Yes.
mentioned a tour of the paper plant? When is that?
That was just tossed out
The
there.
Wausau Committee is,
WASA committee is,
paper task force committee, I forget.
Yes.
Jesse,
yes, and I'm on the WASA task force committee for that.
Just you.
But you're the only one who has to go on the tour, huh?
Some staff is going, I guess. You can check with Sheila.
I'm
Go ahead, Patrick.
maybe trying to think of the exact details, but you had one other council member that was attending last year, but it is the task force committee that was created long before the current owner took the property, and they looked at who's involved is a couple of private businesses, bankers, paper, some individuals that have paper in their background, paper making, I'm sorry, some engineers, in addition to city staff, our economic development with Sheila Haverkamp. If I'm missing anybody else, I can't think of them right now, but to provide input on what best uses could be used for the facility. And the group hasn't met since, I want to say, September. And so Sheila brought up the idea that we meet again to get an update on where Mike is at with, Mike Higgins is at with his process.
Could we maybe send a letter out to Mike and see if he would invite council? You know, if there's more council members, and we
If
can.
I could go, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to, you know, maybe we could set up another meeting, you know, separate.
Why don't we just adjourn to it, and then I'll see if we can,
Yeah.
should it be that meeting or another meeting?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. And then one last thing on, you know, our strategic plan. I kind of went through it and looked at it, and it looks like we've done, you know, a great job following as much as we can with it, and I'm very impressed, you know, moving along with it. So it's not that we were ignoring it, you know, we've been following a lot of things in here, so. On that, we'll jump to 8C, Complete Streets Policy and Resolution, and would this be Dave and Mark? Mark, are you on this?
Dave can do it.
Okay, well, both of you guys.
All right. So at Planning and Zoning, we came up with the memo. We approved the complete streets. There were a couple of changes, and I believe you got most of the changes. There was an email sent out about the change on page 2.4 from shall be included to considered, which we thought was kind of important to get this passed. So it's not it's not dictating that we have to do X, Y, and Z. It gives us some flexibility. If we believe that's appropriate to put a trail in there, we can put a trail in there. It's not that we have to, and then look at the reasons why we couldn't. Trying to remember what the other change was.
Page 4. Number 5.
Okay, I guess
That
there's
was the city enforcement one, number 5. Yeah, now it's in there.
I didn't see on here, but it looks like there's going to be a motion and a resolution out of here, so maybe we can get that out, and then we'll have discussion.
All right. So I move to approve.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, we have a second. Now we can go with discussion. Go ahead, Mark.
All I want to say is, by adopting the Complete Streets policy, what we are telling the community is that our rights of way are not only for vehicles, for moving cars. It's much more important than that. It involves moving people in different forms of transportation. It involves looking at the accommodation for bicyclists and walkers, and it's the process that's important. When we go through the process of evaluating our street projects, what the Complete Streets policy does is it tells the community that we're going to use a process to evaluate the ability to provide for these alternative forms of transportation and evaluate whether or not they should be provided against some criteria to determine the feasibility of doing it. Not only are we just going to talk about cars from now on, it's going to be other things as well in the rights of way.
Thank you, Mark. Any further discussion?
That covers a lot of it. I mean, we wanted it to be more inclusive, looking at the city as a whole. We didn't want it to be a mandate necessarily that says we have to do this, but we definitely wanted to make sure that cyclists and pedestrians and other means of transportation aren't afterthoughts.
Yeah. And I want to thank all the time that you guys got into this, too. You have a question?
No, I love it. I'm going to vote for it. I love walking places in town. It's one of the reasons I live in town.
Okay.
And not to mention the accessibility issues. Brainerd is not a friendly place for a person in a wheelchair to get around. That firsthand from someone who has to rely on an electric wheelchair to move from building to building, from her car to the building. And the more that we can think about how people who don't walk need to move from one place to another, I think that's important.
Sophia, do you have-
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm good to go.
Okay. Any further discussion? This is the resolution. Roll call.
Evans?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yeah.
Borkenhagen?
Yes.
Hilgard?
Yes.
Cope?
No.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Sheeler?
Yes, motion carries. 8D, call for applicants. We're still looking for our Cable TV Advisory Committee. 2 terms to expire on 12/31/2016 and 12/31/2017. And all of TV viewers and the audience, please start jumping in. Charter Commission, 2 terms to expire on 12/31/2018. EDA, we need 1 term to expire on 9/7/2020. And then the Rental Dwelling Boards of Appeal, 1 tenant and 1 general public representative, terms to expire 12/31/2016. Please apply, see the city. Go ahead, Mayor.
I'd like
Help
to-
me out.
Well, I'd just like to make you mentioned about the years.
Yes.
And one of the things that sometimes scares people off is there's 1 term for the EDA to expire in the year 2020. That's quite a ways down the road. And so if somebody has an interest and really does, would like to see what it's about, and they don't have to sign up for the full 5 years. They can sign up, they can, apply, see if they like it or see if it interests them. And if it does, they would probably continue to serve. But if it's something that does not fit their schedule or doesn't fit their interest the way they would like or thought it would, so don't let the years of, the commitment, so to speak, deter people from applying. I think we'd like to have people that really have an interest, and the cable is kind of not real exciting, but the charter has always has stuff that could be looked at. It hasn't been looked at for a number of years. I probably said that wrong. I'll never get anybody for the cable. But anyway, but the charter has, we do have some. It's an old charter, and there are things in there that could be updated or looked at, and so that to me would be something that we'd love to have somebody apply to serve on that, as well as, like I say, the EDA. 5 years is a long commitment. Try it. If you don't like it, you're not forced to spend the rest of the 5 years to serve on that. So
It's not a Supreme Court appointment.
no.
The rental
It's
dwelling.
good, though.
Rental Dwelling Boards of Appeals, what do they do?
That's the committee that Corky and, where's that young man, or,
Okay. So, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to
Go
say
ahead.
that appeals board, because there seems to be a lot of people in the community who are interested in rental problems and things like that now. They are part of that Board of Appeals, would hear any appeals when action is taken on rental licenses. So if somebody's interested in having a say in that, they should maybe get on that committee.
There was a lot of parents
you.
at St. Francis
Good idea.
School that were interested, so that would be a great field for them. Go ahead, Patrick.
He's my best salesman for that one. So.
I was just going to say, because James' comments about you don't have to serve the entire term, and I really appreciate James, but I believe that's how he started 40 years ago, so it's a good lead.
Very good.
So it is kind of like the Supreme Court, huh?
It's looking like it.
Oh, that was great. We're going to go to 8E. I didn't forget you, Mr. Bevins.
Thank
8th
you.
and Juniper.
That's why God made pencils. Write them down. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you recall, first meeting in February, Safety and Public Works and I requested of our attorney some sort of guidance on how to handle the situation. We had constituents and citizens of the world repeating themselves time and time again as to how what we were going to do with the situation on Juniper, 8th and Juniper. And since then, of course, we've received numerous letters, particularly some stating that attorneys for St. Francis or representing St. Francis were stating that we were not following our own procedures. So therefore, I asked our city attorney to provide some written response as to how we were supposed to address those concerns. And we got some, but it was confidential. We couldn't, it wasn't for the public. And boy, they'd surely like some answers. And so we asked if you would give us something, give us help, give us something to talk to our constituents, the people that elected us, as to what we were doing with the situation on 8th Street, particularly with the rental license, and why weren't we suspending the rental license when it appeared to them that we should be doing that? And I thought that was a legitimate question, wanted to know what you could give us for advice as to how to tell those people, and asked you to respond by the February meeting, and I hadn't gotten it, so I thought I'd give you an extra 2 weeks, and here we are in March, we still hadn't gotten it. At least I didn't see it in this packet, and I need your help as to what can I tell. That piece of property is in my ward. I get lots of discussion, some of it even friendly. Most of it, actually, all of it is. But all of it concerned with what the city's doing. And I know we had a really nice presentation by the chief about where we're going moving forward. But I think there's still a large concern about that property and what has already happened. And I thought every single one of those questions was legitimate. But I don't know what to tell them, especially after getting advice from you, sir. So I need your help.
Well,
and I really would like it in writing.
Well, I've done that.
Well, I understand that, but I need something that can be public. I don't. I can just wing it.
No,
but
no, here's how I'll answer your question, I guess. Council is all aware that I provided a memo with my opinion, my interpretation of the application of the city code to that situation and the problems incumbent with that. And it involved mostly process, and we've talked about that at length at other meetings about a lack of, some problems we've had in enforcing or following through with certain things. And like you've said, we've heard tonight how the police department has really implemented new whole-scale changes on that, and I think that's going to go a long ways. What I'm also doing, though, and what I haven't gotten done, and maybe I misunderstood the end of February deadline on that piece, so I apologize if that's the case. But I'm looking at how to revise the ordinance to make that process better, frankly. I mean, either whether it's to streamline it, to make it simpler to follow and simpler for the police department to enforce, or if it's to make bigger changes. I know tonight, like for example, the police chief mentioned, or a question came up during the police chief's presentation about charging fees for the management plan review. Frankly, that's something that's never dawned on me before, but it strikes me as a good idea. But that would need to be put into the ordinance, as a revision to the ordinance. So that's what I'm working on now. I mean, I can certainly bring it back at the next council meeting. I would also ask council for any guidance on other guidance on what you'd want to see in that. I think I identified some of the enforcement problems in my memo to you folks earlier. But if there are other topics or issues that you'd like to see addressed, I'd be happy to do that.
And I had one was, once somebody's been cited and has to do the letter, then we would have yearly inspections instead of every 3 years. Implement that in there because, instead of
With a fee.
with the fee every year, because they kind of fall into where,
Remedial.
it now needs more eyes.
And the other thing that was brought up at the meeting at St. Francis, and it's kind of an outgrowth of a lot of the emails that we've been getting from lots of people, not just the St. Francis parents, about health and safety in regard to all domiciles, but in particular rental property, is what that there be a measure of health and safety standards that don't just pass a checklist inspection, but that there's homes with mold, with holes in ceilings that have plastic patching it, and those are where people are living and paying rent, and the rental code isn't addressing health and safety standards. That concern has been brought forth by multiple people.
One other question was, can you ungrandfather something like this? It's grandfather for a lot of things, especially having a fourplex in this single-family home, and it became part of that with being grandfathered in. Can people, or can the city go back and change that?
Are you a non-conforming use of the
Yes.
property? That's a matter of state law. We can't change that.
Okay.
I mean, there are certain circumstances where a non-conforming use is no longer allowed, but we can't determine when that is. It's when it's been abandoned for over a year, or similar circumstances like that.
And my last question then would be, can you stop somebody from continuing getting more license for rental if they are being cited on properties that they currently have? Can you stop them from, buying another house, renting it out, and not giving them a license? So that the problem doesn't continue till they clean up the problem they have.
I don't believe so under your current ordinance, but I think that's something that could be looked at to add to the revisions to the ordinance.
Okay.
To make that a criteria for granting a license in the first place. Looking at previous.
I'd certainly like to see that investigated, if you're looking for direction from council.
Yes.
Me too.
The other thing is, if I could just to follow up on one last point, is working with the police department on determining, what qualifies for sending the letters. Corky mentioned it earlier. We've had discussions about that. What triggers each step of the process. So we're trying to kind of clarify that to make it, uniform and consistent.
Mm-hmm. Well, we made a lot of great strides, and Mr. Bevan's questions are great too. So go ahead, Mr. Bevins. You got any more?
Not at this time.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? We'll move to item number 9. Thank you. Public forum. This will be time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the council. Time limits may be imposed, and we'll open up the public hearing, or the public forum, I'm sorry, right now. Anybody here for public forum? Going once, twice. The public forum is now closed. We'll go to item number 10, staff reports, verbal, written. Any staff reports? Then we'll go to item number 11, council president, mayor, and council other committee reports. Mr. Russo, you have any?
I'm not on that list.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
I am here.
Okay, go
If I
ahead.
could.
Yep.
It's supposed to snow tomorrow. Can you believe this? We might have snow.
And you're reporting it?
And I'm reporting it.
And you have to shovel your
I heard it
sidewalk.
on the news. Anyway, just a word of caution. We've had dry streets pretty well all winter. If we get snow, please drive carefully. Our police chief is gone, so on his behalf and my behalf, if we get snow, drive careful. The accidents reports are hard to fill out. They cost you money for insurance, everything that you can think of. So please drive carefully and watch out for school buses and children. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to report on a couple of committees I'm the liaison for. One is the Park Board, and I want to thank the Brainerd JCs for donating about $12,000 for us to put some new playground equipment in there. That is fantastic. And at our last HRA meeting, I don't know if any of you read the packet or minutes, but a hotel developer is interested in developing downtown Brainerd, so he came and initially talked to us. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, great news.
Very exciting.
Yeah. Very good news.
You did not receive that, Gabe. Is that something you'd like? We never have forwarded that in the past. Is that something you would like us to?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, if you'd like to see it, it's on the website. I have to go on the website to get it myself.
But
Brainerd
I only
HRA.
caution then again that we can't have 4 of you show up to the meeting without
Yeah.
noticing it. But okay, we can work on that. I can get that out there.
Okay.
And then I'll go with the dam update. There was closed session last Tuesday again, to go over some of the stuff. It's in mediation. Today was mediation day in St. Paul with James Strumman, the attorney for Kennedy and Graven, Mark O'Day and Dolly, and Scott and Todd, and with Park Construction and the engineers Bar and maybe Mead Hunt. I don't know for sure. We're all in mediation today in the city, so I haven't heard anything coming back from it. Again, in mediation, everything will be closed. but work continues on, by Park Construction on the dam. And Patrick and I were in the closed session meetings, and, we're trying to bring progress forward, so we'll see where that all goes. A little bit about the Finance Overview Committee. I would think that we could probably meet sometime in April, kind of to go over some of the numbers. And some of the stuff that I feel this Overview Committee also should look at is all means of getting some extra money to work on the repairs of the dam. The DNR's got that 50%, that they will help. And so there's a lot of issues that we have that we could fund and look for that funding, or at least help in that line. So that'll be the dam update. Any others? I have just one more. I want to ask this question, and I put this one down, and that's, staff, coming to council meetings. Back in my first run, every meeting, the fire chief, the police chief, the director, the planner, everybody was here, and the chairs were full. And then later on, it became every other meeting with the fire chief and the police chief changing. And now, it's come to where they don't have to come unless called upon. And I just feel a disconnect, and especially what I just heard tonight from the Parks Department, which means right now, the way it's set up, we'll never see the park person, we'll never see. And I would like to go back to at least attend a meeting once a month, bring your face to the council, and, to the public, and show up at the meetings. And I would like that, and I don't know if I can get any support.
Again, this is just something you and I have to talk about, but because it was talked about, I did share the memo with staff, and then we talked about it verbally with the last council president. And we notified council. If council wants them here, we can, but again, they're salary employees, so there's a policy about taking time off to make up for night meetings. But we ran into we had like 2 budget work sessions last year where none of the staff were asked any questions or commented on anything. And so the question became, when I worked with Dale, is that effective use of city staff time? And so I'm more than willing to tell them they've got to come back again, but the logic was there that they weren't asked any questions, they weren't presenting anything. What is the benefit to the city? They're at a meeting that they're not asked anything.
It's the connection, I feel, that they would have, with the public, with the council. And then there was a lot of things that we can have a report from them when they come in, the fire chief report, the parks board report, and tonight you just mentioned, basically some of the stuff that's here. But I feel, the empty chairs there signify, like there's a lack of interest, and I don't want that from our staff, and I think coming here, the mayor basically sits here too, and, a lot of times they don't ask him questions, but he shows up at every meeting and he attends them and participates what he can. And that's something that we can continue to talk about, but I just feel that I would like to see, that. There was one more thing that was said. It says, well, what if they get on call? Well, I checked in the last 30 years, none of them has ever been called out of this room. Maybe once. So it's not that, the fire chief or the police chief will be called. So, but,
I think the perception point is good, but I don't think that should be perceived as lack of interest.
Yes.
If we are talking about people that are extremely busy,
yeah.
I think it's something worth discussing, though.
Okay.
Or even quarterly visits. It'd be nice to have a connection with staff. It wouldn't have to be every month necessarily, but some connection. I would be in favor of. I don't know all the city staff that well yet, and it would be an opportunity maybe at the beginning of the meeting where we do the showcase to have a department report or some other way to connect.
Maybe we can move the reports up front there or something. I checked with other cities, and they have staff coming. So it wasn't that I checked with a few other communities, and they have their staff all show up. And so I just was wondering, it just has been kind of slowly seeing less and less and less. We'll never see the park director right now, according to the way the policy is now. We'll never know who Tony is, and before you saw him sitting here, at least once a month. So I would like that connection. Right. Okay, I'll move on to the next thing. We'll continue talking about it. Now, item number 12 is to adjourn to closed session pursuant to MS